Hello everyone, TMMgamer here, and today I have the pleasure to bring you another one of my FIFA 13 tutorials. Now today's tutorial is a really heavily requested one, and as you can see from the title, that is defending counter-attacks. Now, counter-attacks are incredibly efficient at scoring goals and creating chances, and they are a very difficult thing to defend, especially with the number of pacey strikers in the game. Quite often you just see players sit deep, launch counter-attacks, punt it up to a quick striker, and it's quite difficult to stop that. But what I'm going to be showing you in this tutorial are 3 or 4 things that you need to be thinking about and you need to be doing whenever you're up against a guy who likes to counter-attack. So let's get straight onto the tips. Now, the first thing to really get into your head about defending counter-attacks is that the chances are whenever you're up against a counter-attack, your opponent has more available options than you do. So what tends to happen is you'll lose the ball in midfield, or you would have gone forward for a set piece and the ball will bobble into midfield and your opponent will pick it up, and because you've launched an attack or you've been gone forward for that corner or whatever, he'll have pretty much the entire of the midfield open. Your defenders won't be in position, and as a result of that, your opponent will have a lot of space to work in. And all of the clips I show you, the one common denominator they have is that when my opponent picked the ball up, my defence was pretty much nowhere to be seen. And this is a pretty dangerous thing to deal with on FIFA, because whenever I tell you how to defend, I always say get all of your players behind the ball, be tight, let them play in front of you, and then when they make a mistake, put the pressure on, take the ball and go from there. On a counter-attack, you can't do that because you don't have the bodies back to put the pressure on. So what you need to do, and a great example for this is, if you guys have ever watched a game of basketball, whenever you see a team lose possession, they pretty much immediately just run back to their own basket. You know, they don't challenge the ball, they just run back and set up shop and then defend properly from there. And this is what I want to recommend you guys to do when you're defending counterattacks, because you don't have enough players back in defence to stop that attack at that time. So what you're looking to try and do is buy as much time as possible for the rest of your defenders and your midfielders to get back. And in every single clip that I'm rolling through the background now, you can see that the player-controlled player, what I tend to do with him is just run him straight back towards my own goal, and I sprint him back. And what I like to do is, if there's enough defenders there to cover a situation, I'll run a midfielder back. But if there's 3 attackers, 3 defenders, I like to micromanage the defender instead of the midfielder, because occasionally the defending AI on FIFA has a bit of a mare. A defender will push up randomly and it'll leave a massive space in behind. So you want to take that out of the equation. You don't want that to happen. So by retreating your defenders and midfielders back, you slow that counter-attack down, and that's the key thing, because when you're looking to capitalise on the counter-attack, and I mentioned this in my attacking counter-attacking tutorial, you need to have speed of action, because your opponent's defence is in complete shambles. There's only 2 or 3 people back, they're not in the right position, and you want to capitalise as fast as possible on that, because every second you waste is a second closer those midfielders and those defenders who went up for that corner are to getting back in position and shutting you down. So on the reverse side of that, when you're defending, you want to slow your opponent down as much as possible. Now, this doesn't mean trying to put a challenge in early. What I like to do is just jockey, which is the L2 button, and back up towards my goal. So I'm surrendering space, but keeping the opponent in front of me. And that's the thing you want to do 100% of the time. If you let your opponent get in behind you, you're in real trouble, because most centre-halves in the game are not going to be able to catch up with even a moderately pacey winger. If you've got a centre-half above 70 pace, you're doing well. You get a lot of wingers high 90s pace sometimes. I mean, there's exceptionally fast players out there. So if you let that guy in behind you, you really are struggling. So you can see what I do here is I just retreat the players back, surrender the space in my half, and then when I get to the edge of my area, I tend to stop and try and hold them there. And this extra, 5, 10, 15 seconds of time that I buy enables my midfield to get back. And you see several of times here, I run back to the edge of the area, the guy beats my defender, but because I've bought that crucial few seconds, a midfielder can come in and sweep round and take the ball off and the danger's over. However, sometimes that doesn't happen. As you can see with the clip that's rolling now, my opponent is pretty switched on with this break. He's got a really good break and he runs around the outside, and all of a sudden it looks like I'm going to let the guy in a goal and I'm going to concede. However, there is a way you can defend this, and as you can see here, I've got PK highlighted in this example, and I don't try and challenge the striker at all. The striker's sort of peeled off on a slightly wider arcing run, And because he's done this, it means he's got to run a little bit further distance-wise to get to the same position than my defender does. So if you're in this position where you've got a pacey winger or a striker and it looks like he's going to try and run round you, don't try and run to him and pull him back. Because you see a lot of players, they go up and they hold circle or tap circle to try and pull the striker back. And if it doesn't work, you've committed and you've completely lost, basically. What you can see here is I just run straight back towards my goalkeeper, and then because that striker's been forced to do that arcing run, it gives PK the opportunity to put the tackle in. So just by running back and not challenging the striker early, I've managed to defuse that situation. I stopped a nailed-on clear-cut chance, and instead, what happened was the ball bobbled to a second player, but by that time the midfielders have got back, and then they can put the pressure on, and they put the guy under a lot of pressure, and he scuffed his shot, and Casillas had an easy save. And this is the way to defend counter-attacks. You don't want to lunge in early, because if you do, you're completely screwed. You've only got 3 defenders, 4 defenders back. If you then run one of them out of position and miss a tackle, your already painfully weak defensive line is just even more exposed. By refusing to put a tackle in, you give yourself so much more time. You let your midfielders come back, and the great thing is, because you've run back towards the centre of the goal, you're now defending a very narrow area of the pitch. If you're standing on the halfway line, you basically have to defend the entire width of the pitch, because if a ball gets put in behind to a quick winger, it doesn't matter if he's on the wing or if it's a striker in the middle, the chances are he's just going to be able to run through and run straight at goal. When you surrender space and defend on the edge of the area, you only really have to defend the width of the penalty area, because if they go wider than that, all they can really do is put a cross in, and you've got centre-halves back so they can nod that clear. The main danger on a counter-attack is letting your opponent get a shot in at very close range from straight on. And sometimes the best you can do is force a guy wide and have him to have a shot at an angle or a shot from 30 yards out. And if you manage to do that, that's a victory, because the vast majority of time on a counter-attack, the opponent should get a clear-cut chance. He shouldn't necessarily score, but he should have a good chance to score just by doing the right thing. So what you need to do is just not challenge him up the pitch. You retreat, buy time for the midfielders to come back, you try and force them wide, and then only then, if all of that doesn't work and the guy's about to get a shot on, as you saw with that PK example earlier, then you put the tackle in. So guys, thanks for watching. I've tried to make the tutorial a little bit more different. I've tried to keep it slightly more flowing and talking over different clips as I roll them through the background, just to show you what I mean. And I hope you've enjoyed this slight change of style, but more importantly, I hope you've learned something from this video, because I've had loads of people request this video from me, and I agree, counter-attacks are very, very tricky to defend against. But if you just keep that habit in mind of surrendering space, retreating to the edge of your penalty area, then turning and facing, holding them up, delaying them as much as possible, waiting for the support to come in, it's much, much easier to defend. Don't put that lunging tackle in, because if you miss, the chances are your opponent's going to score. So guys, once again, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and as always, have a great day.